TURE DINAR INSIDE. The official news is out. But the real story is what they are not telling you about the new dinar notes. A financial earthquake is rumbling from the heart of Baghdad, and if you're holding Iraqi dinar, your entire financial future could be on the line. It's official. The new currency notes are being released, but before you get swept up in the euphoria, you need to understand this isn't just a simple currency swap. This is the most sophisticated financial operation in Iraq's modern history. A deliberate and calculated move that places the final chess pieces for a long-anticipated economic endgame. The Central Bank of Iraq, under the leadership of Governor Ali al-Alak, is actively revisiting its long-standing plan to remove 3 zeros from the Iraqi dinar, confirming the project is very much alive and in the planning stages for the future. This isn't a revaluation in the way most speculators talk about it. This is a technical process known as redenomination, a strategic maneuver designed to fundamentally simplify the financial system, reduce the massive volume of banknotes in circulation, and modernize the entire cash-dependent economy. The governor himself has directly linked this project to the nation's current 3-year budget, which carries what he called very large expenditures and a high deficit, signaling that this currency reform is a critical component of a much larger plan to achieve national economic stability despite intense spending pressures. Why is this so critical right now? Because the International Monetary Fund is sounding alarms that you can't afford to ignore. The IMF reports that while Iraq has maintained domestic stability, the non-oil economy has dramatically slowed down, and financing constraints are expected to worsen, taking an additional toll on economic activity. The large fiscal expansion in recent years has massively increased Iraq's vulnerabilities, with the oil price required to balance the budget skyrocketing to around $84 in 2024, up from just $54 in 2020. This means Iraq is bleeding money, and the new currency notes are a direct response to this crisis. The IMF is explicitly warning that a sizable fiscal adjustment is needed to mitigate macro-fiscal risks, contain liquidity risks, and stabilize debt. And the deletion of zeros is a cornerstone of this essential adjustment. This isn't just about making the currency easier to count. It's a desperate and necessary rescue mission for an economy dangerously reliant on volatile oil revenues and plagued by a public wage bill that is spiraling out of control. The new notes are the physical symbol of a nation attempting to perform financial heart surgery on itself. And the success or failure of this operation will determine the real value of every dinar you hold. But here's the twist that most investment gurus won't tell you. This redenomination is a double-edged sword with the power to either create a modern economic powerhouse or trigger catastrophic public confusion. Look at the global precedents. Turkey successfully removed 6 zeros from its currency in 2005, which led to decreased inflation and a stronger, more stable economy. Brazil also succeeded in a similar comprehensive approach. However, for every success story, there is a chilling failure. Zimbabwe's redenomination attempt was a disastrous catastrophe, leading to hyperinflation and the eventual abandonment of their national currency because the reform was not backed by sound economic policies. Russia's 1998 attempt also failed miserably due to poor timing and unstable economic conditions. The critical factor that determined success or failure in every single case was the underlying economic health of the nation and the precise execution of the plan. Is Iraq strong enough to follow in Turkey's footsteps, or is it on the path to a Zimbabwe-style collapse? The new banknotes are just paper. The real value lies in the structural reforms happening behind the scenes. The central bank knows this, which is why they are investing heavily in payment infrastructure, expanding digital channels, and tightening anti-money laundering protocols to build the necessary groundwork first. They are moving gradually, hoping to avoid the shocks that could trigger a full-blown banking crisis during this precarious transition. The release of the new notes is the public kickoff of the highest-stakes economic experiment in the Middle East, and you are not just a spectator, you are directly in the impact zone. The world's economic superpowers are now locked in a silent but brutal war for control over Iraq's future, and the new currency notes are their battlefield. This isn't just about economics. It's a high-stakes geopolitical chess match where the winners will lock in generational wealth, and the new dinar is a critical piece on the board. While many investors are focused on the exchange rate, they're completely missing the multi-billion-dollar deals being signed right now that will ultimately determine the currency's real strength and stability. The United States, after years of watching from the sidelines, has made a shocking and calculated return. Energy giants like ExxonMobil and Chevron, alongside service mammoth KBR, have inked major new deals with Baghdad in a dramatic reversal of fortune. But here's the twist that will shock you. This isn't just a commercial decision. Prime Minister Mohammed Shia al-Sudani is strategically using deals with U.S. firms as a political shield. hoping they will lobby Washington against potential sanctions and provide him with the leverage he needs for a second term. The commercial logic is undeniable. Iraq holds some of the world's cheapest to produce oil, but the real driver is a cold political calculation from Baghdad, a desperate gamble for survival and influence on the world stage. Yet, America is far from alone in this scramble. The Gulf nations, led by the UAE and Saudi Arabia, are making an unprecedented financial invasion, and they aren't being subtle about it. The UAE is spearheading the development of the strategic Al Faw Grand Port in Basra, while Saudi Arabia has allocated a staggering $3 billion for Iraqi investments, including a massive $1 billion real estate project in Baghdad itself. Even Qatar has stepped into the ring with preliminary deals worth $7 billion. This regional gold rush signals a profound belief that Iraq's economy is at a tipping point. Why are these nations betting billions? Because they see what most small investors don't. The foundation for a monumental shift is being laid right now. This goes beyond oil. The entire infrastructure of the country is being rebuilt from the ground up. The Development Road Project, a grand north-south transport corridor connecting Iraq to Turkey, aims to revolutionize regional trade and position Iraq as a new strategic hub. The government is also pushing a historic $6 billion renewable energy drive with the goal of generating 12 gigawatts of clean power by 2030. Partnering with global leaders like Total Energies and PowerChina to break its dependence on fossil fuels and finally keep the lights on for its people. But beneath this surface of gleaming new deals and ambitious projects lies a dangerous and often ignored truth. Iraq's entire financial system is undergoing a risky and complex heart transplant. The International Monetary Fund is issuing dire warnings that cannot be ignored. The large fiscal expansion in recent years has massively increased Iraq's vulnerabilities, with the oil price required to balance the budget exploding to around $84 in 2024, up from just $54 in 2020. This means that without significant reform, the state could bleed out. The IMF is demanding a sizable fiscal adjustment to control the public wage bill, boost non-oil revenues, and stabilize debt.
This is the brutal reality behind the headline.
The government knows it must change, and the new dinar is part of this painful medicine. The Central Bank of Iraq is simultaneously trying to absorb excess liquidity and strengthen a fragile banking sector by exploring reforms to ownership structures and business models, while also urgently addressing weaknesses in anti-money laundering and terrorism financing. This is a precarious balancing act. On one hand, you have the Iraq National Investment Commission announcing a landmark $63 billion in foreign direct investment in just a year and a half, a clear sign of global confidence. On the other hand, you have an economy where cash is still king, much of the non-oil sector is informal, and the population remains deeply underbanked. The success of the new currency depends entirely on whether these structural reforms can outpace the systemic rot of corruption and bureaucracy. The world's most powerful corporations and nations are placing their bets. The question is, are you prepared to understand the real game being played? So, where does all this leave you, the investor, and the future of every Iraqi dinar you hold? We have navigated the storm of high-stakes geopolitics and witnessed the flood of foreign capital, but now we arrive at the most critical moment of all, the ultimate verdict on the dinar's value. The release of the new banknotes is not the finish line. It is the starting pistol for Iraq's final, desperate race against economic time. The International Monetary Fund has laid down the law with brutal clarity. Iraq is facing considerable headwinds, with a projected fiscal deficit of 7.5% of GDP in 2025 and total government debt expected to skyrocket from 47.2% to 62.3% of GDP in a single year. The foreign reserves that back the currency are projected to plummet from $100.3 billion in 2024 to a precarious $79.2 billion in 2026. This is the cold, hard data that forms the battlefield upon which the dinar's value will be decided. The government is trapped in a vicious cycle. To secure the short-term stability needed for the currency transition, it must continue paying a massive public wage bill that consumes a staggering 24% of the entire GDP. This spending starves the very infrastructure and development projects that are essential for long-term, non-oil growth, creating a catch-22 that threatens to strangle the revaluation before it even truly begins. The new notes are physically in circulation, but their true test is whether they can survive the gravitational pull of an economic model that is fundamentally broken. A system where over 40% of the workforce is on the government payroll, sucking 59% of all public expenditures away from productive investment and into a black hole of patronage. This is the brutal math behind the monetary reform. The central bank can change the paper, but it cannot single-handedly change the political economy that has brought Iraq to the brink. The IMF is demanding an ambitious structural reform agenda that includes controlling the public wage bill, increasing excise taxes, and even introducing a general sales tax in the medium term, all politically toxic measures that could spark social unrest. The government knows it must act, but every step toward fiscal sanity is a step that risks its own political survival. This is the tightrope they are walking, and the value of your investment is walking it with them. The potential for a revaluation is real, but it is not guaranteed by new banknotes alone. It is conditional upon a success that has yet to be achieved. It hinges on the government's ability to perform nothing short of an economic miracle, to dismantle the very patronage networks that keep it in power, to fight an entrenched corruption that has defied every previous attempt at reform, and to somehow catalyze a private sector that has been suffocated for decades. The Iraq Fund for Development is a promising vehicle for channeling oil surplus into strategic investments, and the push for public-private partnerships is a step in the right direction. The digital economy is accelerating, with new regulations catalyzing fintech and e-wallet adoption. Major projects like the Strategic Development Road and the Al-Faw Grand Port aim to turn Iraq into a regional trade hub. But these are still seeds that have yet to sprout. The moment of truth is here. The new currency notes are a powerful symbol of intent, but symbols do not pay bills or build sustainable economies. The coming months will reveal whether this is the dawn of a new economic era for Iraq or merely the prelude to another disappointing chapter of unfulfilled potential. The data does not lie. The path forward is fraught with immense risk, but also historic opportunity. And this is why you must stay connected to this story like never before. The official narrative will be one of progress and triumph, but the real story, the one that determines your financial future, will be written in the fine print of budget reports, IMF assessments, and the subtle shifts in the parallel market exchange rate. You need a source that cuts through the noise and delivers the unvarnished truth. If you are serious about protecting and growing your investment in the Iraqi dinar, you cannot afford to be in the dark. This is not the time to be a passive observer. The next few weeks and months will be the most critical in this entire process. We will be here, watching every development, analyzing every data point, and bringing you the clear, unbiased analysis you need to make informed decisions. So, take action right now. The information is power, and in this high-stakes environment, you need all the power you can get. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications for TURE Dinar Inside because we are your frontline for the real, unfiltered truth about the Iraqi dinar revaluation. You will not want to miss what happens next.